What is cracking? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hinesights podcast. Today we have a fantastic and amazing guest. Her name is Nadine Crocker. She's making huge waves in the fight to stop suicide with her amazing films. Please welcome my friend, the one and only Nadine Crocker. Nadine, how are you?
Woo, hi, good. How are you?
Good to see you.
So good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, show me your nails. That's wild.
Cow print.
For those of you listening on audio only, you're missing out. Go check the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Kevin Hines for the video so you can see Nadine's nails. They are epic. Okay. So let's get right into it. Let's share with the world your amazing story. Nadine, we know you were born in Nashville, Tennessee, raised in Fresno, California, before picking up at 16 years old and heading to the big city of Los Angeles, California, to pursue your filmmaking dreams and visions. In your early 20s, Nadine, it's known that you struggle with past trauma and depression soon after attempting suicide. You had your directorial debut in the award-winning film Continue, which is taking over film festivals and screens near and far. It already won a Best Feature Film. And Nadine, congratulations, you won that and a Best Actress, and you are just getting started. Yes, round of applause for Nadine Crocker, for sure. Nadine, you're honest about the fact that you still struggle with regular chronic thoughts of suicide and depression. Your grandfather took his life. And this film, Continue, is a meddling of your story of surviving your attempt and your father's struggle of healing after the loss of his father, your grandfather. Mm-hmm. Multiple members of your family have lived with depression, and you and your dad carry a bond together. You rebuild muscle cars, and tell everyone right now what your favorite is to rebuild.
Chevy Chevelle.
Chevy Chevelle. What a classic.
Yes.
What a classic. Nadine, welcome to the Hinesights podcast. It is so great to have you on. I'm so glad to have you with us. We got to meet a few months back in Los Angeles. We did some video work together for one of my wife's partnering companies, Veza, which means connection. And you came on and you shared your story there, which was amazing. And then we got to meet and talk turkey about film and all things that you're working on, which was really cool. I have to ask you, just to kick this off really, let's go back in time. I want to know what was your early childhood and your adolescence like? If you can break down two stories about those time periods, what would they be?
Oh, two stories. Yeah, I mean, I think just going back to my childhood period, I've always been a creative, and I think that made me prone for the dramatics, if you will, and I always had really big emotions, and, that wasn't easy being, young and having such a big surge of emotions and so many things going on inside my brain, and kind of always feeling like I didn't really have a place to belong. I loved drama and was a drama nerd and loved doing theater and different things like that. And, I think I never really fit in a perfect box. So I didn't really know where I belonged. And, I was pretty heavily bullied and disliked when I was young. I try and think back of that time and kind of try and replay, what was my part in it? What was it, essentially that kind of put me in that outcast place. And I think it's a mixture of things. I think it's, half of why I'm so open about where I am now is, as youth, we aren't very honest about how we're doing or where we come from. And we're all kind of putting on the facade that we're okay. And, all of those things. So, my youth and my younger years were really difficult. And that, I think, is part of why, my family let me leave high school at 16 and move to Los Angeles, because they knew that, I think they knew deep down I probably wasn't going to make it in Fresno. And I definitely wasn't going to make it if I didn't just go and put my all into something, and that for me was the arts. But I guess one of the stories I'll go back to too is, coming from Fresno, California, it was very different when I grew up there than it is now. I feel like now it's like a small Sacramento. It's so beautiful. And it really is such a beautiful place to grow up. I'm sure for a lot of people as well. But I've been in more fist fights than most girls that you've met. I've been jumped by 5 girls. It was difficult there, for me personally growing up. So, I'm really happy that I did it the way that I did. And then I escaped at 16 because I kind of got to figure out who the hell I was, without the eyes of everyone watching from high school, which I think most people would admit high school is really hard and scary and all of those things. So,
It can be brutal.
yeah.
My high school years certainly were, my grade school years were even worse. But I totally empathize with what you went through.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what your childhood was like, and your early adolescence. You moved straight to Los Angeles. After the move to Los Angeles, what was your life like living at 16 in a city that you were just getting to know?
It was lonely, if I'm honest. Like when you're 16, it's really hard to find places to go make friends, and most of the people that I was meeting, because I worked in a lot of restaurants, and basically like what my beginning years really looked like was me having 3 or 4 jobs or however many jobs it took to actually be able to afford to stay in Los Angeles. So yeah, I was working a lot of jobs, and outside of that, an acting class and auditioning and just doing everything I could to pursue my dreams at that time. So, when I think back to those beginning years, the real word that comes to mind is isolation. Like it was hard to know how to make friends. And I was constantly like, honestly trying to find a fake ID so that I could just actually go out with my friends that I was meeting at the restaurants, because we all served tables together, but they were all over 21 and I was not. So, it just kind of was hard because you couldn't go out with the people you did know. And I didn't know how to meet people my own age. So, it was lonely in those beginning days. And also exciting and thrilling and terrifying all at once. Also living alone when you're 16, it's like I'm constantly convinced there's like ghosts in every closet. So you know what I mean? It was just like
Even now, you're like, there's a ghost everywhere.
yeah, literally. I still sleep with like a nightlight on at the age of 33. So
Well, that to go back to your earlier point in that response, the loneliness. They say now today that loneliness is the equivalent of smoking 16 cigarettes a day on your body. That it has that equivalent of damaging your body's cells and your body's physiologically, physically, even mentally and emotionally. Loneliness can be, for lack of a better term, crippling. How did you come from that loneliness into feeling like you belonged?
well, so that's this year that I feel no, like honestly,
No, really.
yeah, it really, you know what? I can say with full confidence that I don't feel like that happened until my 30s. I think that my suicide attempt and honestly, truthfully becoming a mother taught me so much and made me finally realize that I wasn't going to get everyone to like me. I had to stop pretending I was anything I wasn't and just be who I am. And my people would find me and like who that person is, or they wouldn't. But for so many years, I think because of acting also, like they tell you like fake it till you make it, or like be what you think they want you to be so that you can get the job. And so I was always trying to pretend I was like charming and flirtatious and fun and the edgy chick with tattoos that like just doesn't give a shit and is so strong and this and that. And like inside, actually, I was lonely and I was sad and I didn't have the confidence that I pretended I had, and all of those things. And what you just said about loneliness, that doesn't surprise me like whatsoever, because I feel like through those years, it was like my health was always at stake. I was in and out of the hospital. I was like falling apart mentally and physically. So it doesn't surprise me that loneliness and that isolation manifests like through our actual cells in our body, and that like deterioration from those emotions. Like I absolutely believe that, so it,
It really does play a pivotal role in our true well-being, or our wellness, is, if you will. Okay, if you're willing and able, and I don't want to push you any place you don't want to go, but can you share with the audience, the Hinesights audience, some of the traumas you experienced and how they changed your whole life?
yeah. I mean, where does it begin? I mean, I mentioned kind of about the bullying and about the rumors and the things that would follow around at high school, most of which not true, which made it really hard to make friends and to pretty much constantly feel like I didn't belong. Not being like anyone else in my family made it really hard. Like even relatives, I feel like didn't really know what to do with me. So they just kind of avoided me. So I didn't really have anybody, friends or any of that, or outside of my immediate family, like really anyone. And I, it's funny, like I want to be honest here, with you, because one of my favorite things about you is just like, you are someone that you can be honest with. But I grew up, I've always kind of kept it quiet about my home life because, both my parents are still alive, and you kind of feel like you're like, I come from a family of like secrets. We're supposed to pretend that we're okay and there wasn't problems at home and all of that. But I grew up in a pretty um volatile household. There was a lot of struggle. My grandfather's suicide really destroyed my father, and he had so much rage and anger, and he had no idea, I think, how to really deal with it. And he came from a very traumatic, very abusive upbringing. I mean, him and all of his family did. And I think that's the story for a lot of our parents. Like, that ancestral trauma, just like they did the best they could, but they couldn't help but, pass some of that along. And so it was hard. My parents fought, and there was screaming and breaking of furniture, and, iced teas being thrown at the wall, or, just a lot of bad shit. It's like funny. You don't like know how to say some of the trauma, but when you've watched y- your own family members like hold a gun to their own head in front of you as a growing adult, like gonna take their own life in front of you, that sticks with you. That messes with you, and I guess in some way kind of made me feel so unimportant, like, wait, you brought me into this world, you raised me, now you want to just abandon me here? I already don't know what the hell I'm doing on this planet, so there was just a lot. I was diagnosed with severe PTSD, and it kind of all made sense. Like, I didn't know that if you hadn't been to war, that like that was still a thing. But some of our childhood memories are war. They're similar, and we survive them just the same, and we're still trying to figure our own shit out and how to like, deal with that. And moving on past a lot of my childhood stuff. And then I also suffered with alcoholism, and using drugs to try and numb away the pain. Truthfully, what I like to call myself is I was a chemist. How many drinks to forget it all, and to be the fun one, the outgoing and clever, and then how many is one drink too many, to where I actually unreleased it all, and then I just had all of these emotions that I had no idea what to do with or how to hide in most of my suicide attempts. Because I'll be honest, the one that the movie is based on is the one I got caught, and that I got taken in, and all of those things. But there were many more that, if it wasn't for the person that I was with at that time, like, I don't know that I'd be alive today. There was a lot of really, really dark moments. So getting sober, 6 years sober now today, like that was a huge factor for
6 years
me.
sober.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's
Thank
amazing.
you. I know October will be 7 years. So
Wow.
it's just like beyond me, because when you're first starting out, you don't know that you can collect any kind of time. You don't know that you can deal with that kind of pain on your own. It's terrifying, and just to go a little bit further into like the trauma without talking for too much about it all. But I'm also a sexual assault survivor. And, so when you've had your power taken from you in that way, it's really hard to come back from. And then like the guilt of not coming forward sooner, like stuck with me, and that guilt you take on, and all of, the pain that comes along with that, and trying to like kind of reclaim your life and who you are after that. Yeah. And to tell you the truth, like, I mean, the list could probably continue to go on and on, but only through my age now, are a lot of these things that used to be super painful to try and talk about, like, can I actually see the beauty in it? Because all of those events led me to exactly who I am today. And it made me the empath that I am today. And I believe that, you know, God did that because now there's not a person I can't relate to their struggles, to their pain. I've been through a lot of shit in my life. And, sometimes I think it was part of the process so I could help relate and maybe help other people, because I think my mission on this planet is to help, to try and leave this place a little bit better than it was when I came in.
Well, that was amazing, because that much I know to be true. After meeting you those couple of times, getting to know you a bit, hearing your story and these pieces that I have, and then learning about this film Continue, seeing the film and having it blow me and my wife away, about how I guess viscerally and palpably powerful it was just to be sitting watching it. First of all, when did you know filmmaking was your call?
When I was very little, honestly. I always tell the story. I was watching, my dad was a country singer, and that's why I was born in Nashville, Tennessee. And I would watch his music videos, and I wanted to be the girl in the videos. And without knowing it, I always thought I just wanted to be an actor. But without knowing it, I was creating, like, I'd hear songs and I'd be like, oh, this is the story of this music, or like of this song. And the music video would be like me walking, and I'd be going through. And like, so I just thought that's like, was me dreaming of acting. But really only now do I realize, as I'm creating visions for films and writing films, I'm like, oh, that's what you've literally been doing since you were a little girl, So I now realize filmmaking and the arts have been with me since very young. Like, I'd say probably like 5. I mean, I was dreaming of being in those videos. Yeah, so young.
It's amazing. I had my first want to be an actor and a filmmaker at 6, so we share that in common. I think I saw a Jim Carrey movie, and I was like, I'm all in.
Yep.
This just got me. When did you choose to call your film Continue? Why did you choose to call your film Continue?
Why? Well, I mean,
I get it, but I want to hear you.
Yes, exactly. No, essentially because my prayer was that this film would help people to continue. Yeah, to live another day, to put one foot in front of the other and just give one more day.
It's kind of another way to say this.
Yep.
Be here tomorrow.
Exactly.
And every day after that, just keep on continuing. I love that. It's so perfect in one word. When did you realize you wanted to use your experience in film and cinematography to actually help prevent suicide?
So I really realized I was writing these scenes from my life, kind of to just like work through some of the emotion, I think, and probably the trauma, and also like, I don't know, share part of my story with this room of other actors and creators that I really trusted at the time. And the more and more that I put up these scenes, the more and more people would come up to me or message me afterwards and kind of tell me their story or their struggles. And as that happened more and more, and they, asked me to write scenes or to participate in my scenes, wanting to dive into their own traumas or their own pain, like through these scenes. And then I started writing, like people would tell me their story and be like, okay, well, this is my character's trauma and this is your character's, we were all working through our trauma kind of together. And that's when I realized, I'm like, holy shit, through talking about my story, what if I could help others talk about theirs? What if we could open up a conversation that's normally so taboo or closed off from the world, where we all pretend we're okay? But like, what if by me admitting I'm not okay and I have this pain and these struggles, what if that could help people? And that started the journey and trying to find the confidence to write it. And it took me years even after that to finally have the courage, I think, to put it out and to share it with people.
Wow. Okay. So you knew when you wanted to be in film, or whether it's acting or making movies, you realized that you wanted to use film as a medium to change lives, potentially help save lives. What is your favorite aspect of filmmaking, or do you have one?
Favorite aspects. I mean, literally, I love every aspect of it. I've escaped through movies pretty much my whole life. So like, I love everything about it. I love hearing people laugh. I love that we can take people out of their own life for a few moments and put them in the seat of somebody else. And the real reason that I chose film and that I continue to choose film is because it's like a proven fact, basically, that it is the best way to enable people's empathy, because it doesn't matter whose journey you're on. When you are watching a character's journey, you root for them, even if our lead is a villain. It's like Venom, or I always use the Marvel films. They're going into villains now, and normally you would be like, no, the villains aren't who we want to talk about. We want to talk about the superheroes. But actually, it doesn't matter. If you are on their journey, you still root for them, even if they're this quote unquote bad guy. So that is how I knew, because I felt like, especially with Continue, if I could get people to feel empathy for someone going through this struggle of depression and suicidal thought, maybe I could make them understand in a small way, or see their relative who struggles for the first time in a really clear light. Like, using me as an example, just because that's the easiest way to do it. Like, maybe my family would watch it and go, oh my God, for once I really understand, because I have whole monologues, which actually came from like my mom going, I just want to understand how you could try and take your own life. And I just had this moment where I said to her, it's like an alcoholic. They're always going to want to drink. It's there. And a girl with bulimia is always going to think about throwing up after a big steak dinner. But with sadness, it just has this way of creeping in, even over the smallest thought. Right. So that's the monologue in the movie. But it was an actual real moment with my mother trying to explain. And I was like, well, what if I use all these moments from my life and I can show the people in the audience who maybe have a family member or maybe have their own struggles, like let them feel like they're identified through a character for once,
Mhm.
and maybe show the world a different side of depression and suicide that they haven't seen, and get rid of that fucking myth of like, it's a choose to be happy. You just got to make the choice. It's like, yeah, it's not as easy as that. I would love to just be able to choose happiness, but sometimes what that looks like, that choice from happiness, is just to get myself out of bed.
Wow. Wow. This next question, I felt like asking, I felt like it was an important one. Was there any point in the process up to making the film or during making the film that you second guessed the decision to make the film?
Of course I did. If I'm honest, because I think that we have to be, right? The whole purpose of this film is to be honest and to show behind the curtain. As a director, you're really scared. Like, I didn't want people to like not want to insure me, to not believe that I'm like healthy enough to because there is this misconception, like, oh, this person feels that, so they're crazy, or they have this or that, and they want to label or something that maybe they don't understand or they can't identify with. So there was certainly film fear that maybe it wouldn't be accepted, or it wasn't ready to be accepted, or maybe people weren't going to be ready to talk about it, because I had been pre-warned a lot about making this film. I had been told that no one wants to talk about mental health and no one wants to talk about suicide. And it's a very taboo subject, and it's going to be really hard for you to get this out and into the world. And I actually had offers to make this film in a much bigger way if I was willing to change some of my key things about the ending or different things, which most people don't know the ending. You have a little inside scoop, but, and I wasn't willing to, because my whole message is give it one more day, make the choice to live. And I also didn't feel like the people battling out there would be satisfied with the pretty girl getting everything she wanted in the end. And actually life was just perfect. I tried to show that even after that survival, there is still struggle and pain. Like, it's not just like she survives and like, woohoo, it's all done, but yeah, there was definitely fear, to put it out, but there was also support, which I'm really grateful. And it helped me find my people, like without that film, I would have never found you or Margaret, and so many of the amazing people I have in my life. So I'm really glad I did.
Good. Well, we're really glad you did too. The movie is phenomenal. So anyone who's listening to this podcast, viewing or watching, make sure you subscribe, but definitely check out Nadine's film Continue. It's an amazing piece of work that's changing lives. Now tell all of us about your nonprofit, Continue On.
Yeah, it's still in development. I'm trying to get everything I need to create the actual nonprofit aspect of it. It's a really expensive process, which I know you know very well. Yeah, and it's like
501c3 is no easy task.
No. And after just raising a lot of money for a film, then going to a lot of investors and be like, so thanks for that. You want to also fund my nonprofit? So it's been a challenge, but I'm in the process of still, trying to create the nonprofit aspect. And my entire goal for the Continue On Foundation is to actually pretty much create a subsidy that people can donate to, that gets people and our youth the mental health services they need. And I got that idea basically because only recently, more recent than most people would expect, I was like, okay, I've been in therapy forever, AA, all the things, I really want to revisit going to psychiatrist, revisit maybe medication, or figure out what is the best thing for me, because I had really adverse effects previously. So, finding that balance is really hard. And so I kind of had to do it because I had adverse effects, and it actually made me more suicidal for a period of time. And I had to find my balance, but I was like, I want to go back, and I couldn't afford it. I could not. Most people have this misconception, or like that, maybe I don't have financial. No, we all have financial struggles. And when I was looking into it in Los Angeles, it was so expensive to find a psychiatrist that I could go to. And it made me realize, if I'm having these struggles, how many people out there, and how much youth who have no idea where to go and how to get these services, and maybe don't have the support from their parents to do this. How many people are out there who need help to get these services? So my goal is to kind of almost be like an insurance company. Like, I have doctors that I work with, and we get, we take care of the fees, and we get people the mental health services that they need. And, I also dream of kind of traveling and doing these workshops where we use the arts to talk about mental health and our emotions. And, because I know personally, sometimes writing a monologue or writing for someone else to say is a lot easier than telling someone, hey, I'm not okay. So I want to try and use the arts to help people tell their truths, So there's a lot of goals, and I'm on a mission.
You're on a mission. You will get all those goals achieved. I know that because I know you enough to know that when you want to do something, you do it. So that part is going to be awesome when it all comes together. So I have to ask you this: how do you protect your peace of mind and maintain your own personal boundaries, which so many people struggle with when your life is so out there and you're such a public figure?
I don't know. I think this is a good one that I'm kind of struggling with right now, like finding that balance. I've gotten really good through extensive therapy. I know you and I are both very big fans of therapy. So I'm getting so much better at boundaries, especially with people in my life. It does get a little muddy and it gets a little painful. And I've actually asked Margaret a few times for advice of like, how do you balance when people are coming to you for advice or for different things when I'm not a therapist? I want to make sure people are safe. I don't have all the answers. Half the time I'm still figuring things out, So I've kind of just been really honest about my story, but also the things that I don't really know how to say yet or how to be, like I've reserved those so that I don't, so it's baby steps into how do you let out a lot of your stuff and in a really safe way, while also feeling safe, and feeling like, because I have a very active mind. Like, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I spin out a lot. I'll rethink something I said maybe on this podcast, like for hours after, like, why did you say it like that? Did you have to, so like, I am really,
Overthinking.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's this spinning cycle, so I've gotten really, I've gotten a lot better at taking a breath before I answer things, checking in with myself with like, how do you feel about that? How would you say that? Do you feel safe saying that? And then proceeding forward at my own comfort level, So it's an ongoing thing, but I can tell you, as scary as it was to kind of put my story out there, I just feel really grateful at the feedback I've heard and all of the messages and the people, like, we were at a festival this weekend, and, a lot of my time, like my husband actually asked me this. He's like, I've always wondered, is it tiring or like hard sometimes to have so many people come up to you, want to tell you their stories afterwards and want your advice and these different things. And I'm sure you get this more than anybody. And like, there are those moments where, it is, but for the most part, it's just like, I feel so lucky that I set out to try and help people and be honest. And I'm hearing back in real time that what I did make a difference,
Makes a huge difference. And when you said this earlier, when you tell your story, people tell you theirs.
Yeah.
And whether that's through the medium of film or personally saying the words of your story, people still come up to you and tell you theirs. And I look at it as much as, when there are 100 people in line and you're wiped out from what you just did and your energy is spent, there's something to be said about how that line of people fuels that energy back in you. And they tell you their story, even if they're painful stories, they tell you their story, and you feel that empathy and you feel that lack of judgment and you feel that wonderment you get from someone caring enough to share with you their darkest truths, their deepest pains. There's something, it's odd, but there's something special about that. There's, you either can look at it as a drain or you can look at it as a gift and hold gratitude for it. And that's how I look at it. I look at it as a gift. I hold gratitude for it. And I hold that gratitude inside that pain, which makes it all so powerful of an experience. And there's some of these stories people tell you that you never forget.
Yeah.
You never forget. They never leave your mind. The next time you go to a talk or a show, a film screening or whatever it is, you remember that story and you try to impact someone in that new audience in the same way.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, you've been doing this for so many years and really just being so brave, but I can say, yeah, it does feel like a blessing. It actually feels like for once, it all makes sense. Like why I've had depression, all of those things. Like, what is that quote? You can't connect the dots looking forward, only looking back, and now I stand here and like, I talk to these people and I'm just like, man, I feel like this has all actually really been a part of my journey. Like this is exactly how it was supposed to be. So I could be standing here in this exact moment and be talking to this person and hearing this story,
It's a part of your moving purpose.
Yeah.
It's part of your moving purpose. Okay. 2 more questions and we'll wrap this all up. What advice would you give your 18-year-old self today, right now? What would you tell your 18-year-old self or your 16-year-old self who moved to Los Angeles?
Yeah. Right. Oh, that's a really good question. I would tell my 16 and 18-year-old self and 27 and 30 and 33-year-old self. No, be yourself. Stop stop trying to pretend that you're okay. Stop trying to be what anybody else wants you to be. What I've discovered today, as I'm sitting here with you right now, that I can tell you, younger self, um, the moment you start actually being who you are and sharing your story and letting people behind the curtain, it's actually the most accepted you will ever feel. It is actually the biggest worth and like high you will ever experience, just being honest with who you are. You know, I go into these huge meetings with people I have admired most of my life. Like I'm, getting ready to direct my next film. And there are stars that I have admired since I was young that I am now meeting with. And I sit there and it's terrifying it sometimes, and I literally always have to repeat to myself, like, all you can be is you. If they connect with that, great. If they don't, they're not your people. You will find
Yes.
your people. And that's all you can do. Pretending to be anything else is the quickest recipe for being miserable.
I think pretending to be anything else is also the quickest recipe for self-destruction.
Yeah.
When you think about it. Wow.
Which is
Amazing.
probably why my 20s look exactly like they did, because I was being anything but me.
And now you're being you, and you're seeing the benefits of just being free, and it's amazing. As the quote goes, the truth shall set you free.
Yes.
I think it always does. All right, last question, Nadine, that will wrap this up with a nice little bow and a cherry on top. What is next for you, Nadine Crocker?
What is next for me? It's always an adventure in filmmaking. At this moment, I should be leaving anytime to direct my next film, which is called Desperation Road. It's based on a best-selling novel by Michael Ferris Smith, and it is an amazing book and script. And I am getting to work with some of my favorite human beings, and I cannot wait to do it. And then at the top of 2023, we're casting right now, but our hopes is to be filming another project, Hallow, which I was able to do a rewrite, page one rewrite, and has basically become one of my new babies that I love so much, which is actually all about childhood trauma and the long-term effects of that trauma and the unraveling it can cause, and the battles with addiction and everything that can come with it, all wrapped around sexual assault and that trauma when you are that childhood trauma. So once again, my entire mission for being on this planet and for making films is to try and shine a light on topics that I believe need to be talked about and amplifying voices that I think need to be heard. So, that's my mission. That's where I continue to hope to go, and continue is going to be coming to select theaters and also VOD everywhere very soon. We're in the middle of negotiating distribution, so we're like really, really close, and everyone will get to see the film. But until then, we have August 20th and the 22nd, we will be in San Jose for CineQuest Film Festival too. So you can get tickets and you can come meet us, the filmmakers, and all the people who helped me make it possible. And we'll be doing the Q&A and everything after. So that'll be fun.
Amazing, Nadine. So exciting. Wishing you and your husband and your whole family the best always. Love the work you do. Love getting to know you more on this podcast. Thank you from the bottom of my heart and from my gut for coming on the Hinesights podcast. I'm eternally grateful. Wishing you a great day. Be here tomorrow and every day after that. And that goes for every person listening and watching today. Give yourself the time you need to heal. Forgive yourself for your past issues and transgressions. Recognize that you are beautiful just the way you are, and you're 1,000 times greater than the worst thing you've ever done. And be here tomorrow and every day after that. Bye, Nadine. Bye, Hinesights listeners. Take care, be well, and be here tomorrow.